Factorio, Satisfactory, and Mindustry are all factory games. They are fun, they are popular, but most importantly, they make money. About a month ago, I had this completely random and entirely unique thought. I want to make one of these games.
So if you don't know, a factory game is one where the player must use their brain to build a factory. Most factory games start with you having to mine raw resources, like iron or copper ore. Then, they need you to build a factory to process these resources to turn them into something useful.
Then the process repeats. You use the resources you just refined to create products. Then you use those products to create other products, and so on. The motivation for doing this changes from game to game. In some games, you get money when you sell the products. Others, you need the products to unlock new buildings. Or for other games, the products are directly used to defend your factory, like ammunition.
Then, as the game progresses, your factory will get progressively more and more complex, making your factory an ever-expanding, complicated puzzle for you to weave your production lines through. The factory game formula works because it's essentially just one long puzzle game. The player is continuously learning, making mistakes, and problem-solving, which some people really like doing.
Now that we've defined what a factory game is, we can begin to define what kind of factory game we want to make. For starters, I knew that I wanted to make it a 3D game, so that means that I would need models and textures. Of course, to lighten my load, I decided to opt for a pixelated look, which also happens to be an art style. I also enlisted the help of 2 unpaid interns.
Bro, open up paint.net.
It's loading!
Just get a better piece.
I also wanted to make it grid-based, where each building occupies a set amount of grid spaces, rather than making a building just to occupy a box. This is so players have more freedom in the way that they place buildings, compared to where the box approach would just hinder them. Now, some factory games have a power mechanic. Often, it's just a case of connecting your buildings to power, and then making sure you have enough power to power those buildings. Now, I intend to do something similar, but the difference between my game's power system and a game like Satisfactory's power system is that in Satisfactory, cables don't have any collision. You can build right through them. In my game, they do. This is to make sure that the player has to really think about how they structure their cable network. Alright, so that's all my general ideas out of the way. On to the actual game development. I'm using the Unity game engine to develop this game. However, being the genius that I am, I decided not to record this process, because I had a program that should have let me backtrack and record the video. Thing is, that didn't work. To explain what went wrong, I'm going to explain Git, the source control software that I use. How it works is, you first create a repository and put it somewhere on your computer. Then, whenever anything in the repository changes, Git adds it to a list of changes that occurred. Then, once you're happy with your changes, you write a commit message to pair the changes with, and then confirm the changes. Then, you can upload those changes to the cloud, which lets other people see the changes you've made. This is the benefit of letting you backtrack. Say someone else makes changes to a file, and you want to see what the file looked like before they changed it. You can do that. Thing is, sometimes there are files in your repository that you don't want to upload. For example, I have a separate repository for the game itself, which includes the entire Unity project. The only files that I need to be synchronized are in my assets, user settings, and project settings folders. I don't need to include all of the folders. And some of these are really big. So, Git comes with this handy dandy file called a .gitignore, which lets you specify what files, folders, or file extensions to ignore. Which is where the big issue comes in. In my haste to get the Git set up for the project, I had told Git to ignore some important files. Most notably, the .meta files that Unity generates to keep track of the import settings for my assets, along with a few others. Now, I'm not entirely sure of everything that went wrong. What I do know is that when I try to load an older version of my project, this happens. So essentially, all the progress that I've made, I can't go back and record. So now in this version of the game, you can move the camera around, you can select a building you want to place, you can place the building, you can remove it, you can rotate it, you can create conveyor lines, and you can turn these yellow blocks into grey blocks, which you can then sell. And much more. So now that we're finally up to speed, I can make videos on the development of this project. More videos will be coming once I decide what I want to show and what I don't want to show, as game development can be a very boring process for anyone looking in, and I don't want to make my videos too boring. I'll put the relevant links for my intern in the description, along with a link to my itch.io page, so you can see the other abominations that I've decided to make public. Just keep in mind, some of those really aren't good. Anyway, of course, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Phil, and I will see you in a bit.